welcome to Suffragette City Radio. I'm DJ Lippy.
And I'm Sober Maid. We're back in the studio. Your bed.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
I've been really busy actually.
Oh yeah.
Doing some protesting.
Oh, go on. What have you been doing?
Well, it's like my first ever time protesting because usually I'm a bit more like behind the scenes. Do you know what I mean? And so I went to Manchester Pride a couple of weeks ago and crashed the front of it with Get the Hell Out. So I don't know if you remember last year, Get the Hell Out was a group of lesbians who basically think that the LGBT is no longer supporting them and it's enforcing corrective rape and it's harming young lesbians who are trying to transition to male at an alarming rate. So I went along to that and crashed the front of it. It was cool. It was a lot more. I was expecting a lot worse, to be honest. There was a lot of support from the audience. Now, I don't know, they might not have known who we were because it was just like the front of the parade, but lots of women supporting us. And we did get a few shouts, but it was all men. Like, it was interesting to see it sort of firsthand.
What, who were counter-protesting or what?
Yeah, shouting like turfs out. It was all men. It was all male voices. Other highlights, so we were doing some chanting. And one of them is lesbians don't have penises. And it was really cute. There was a little girl going, lesbians don't have penises. And I was like, yes, mate. I think she was just happy to have an excuse to say penis. Another highlight was this gay guy shouted at us, lesbians don't belong at Pride and never have done. And then he was like, I mean political lesbians. And we were like, yeah.
But it says it all.
No,
that
we heard what you said.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
When someone shows you they are, believe them.
Yeah. And what else was it? Oh yeah, this is my favourite chant. Queer means gay and gay means everyone.
Okay.
It's like words, anything can mean anything now, can't it?
Great.
Okay, yay. And then, so that was then. And then yesterday I went to the Lesbian Strength March in Leeds.
Oh, nice. How was that?
Well, I was going as an ally, show some solidarity because I thought it could get a bit hectic. There was basically just a march of lesbian unity, but there was obviously a counter demonstration by people who don't believe that women are allowed to have their own spaces and their own things. So it was interesting. I was going along and I wasn't going to march, but to be honest, I didn't want to stand around by myself in Leeds with all these it was a bit hectic. So I went and stood at the back with the bisexual contingency at the back. It was me and Charlie Evans, you know, the detransitioner.
Oh, she tweets and she tweeted something interesting the other day, didn't she?
Yeah. So I met her a couple of times now. So we were at the back and basically our job, they were allowing the counter protesters to march behind us.
Okay.
But they weren't giving any space, and we were at the back, and the community support officers, I think they just thought it was a bit of a joke, to be honest. And we were slowing down. We were walking really slowly to get space between their march and our march because it was getting really close, and it was just you could just feel the tension escalating. It was horrible.
So you were trying to act as a bit of a buffer.
Yeah, so we were like a buffer, and walking trying to walk really slowly, and the coppers were like, "Come on, ladies, hurry up!" And we were like, "No, we're trying to create a bit of distance." And he was like, "Come on," he's like, we were silly girls.
No,
we
what we like.
And you're like, "No, we're doing your job for you, but mate, you have to give some space because this is getting confrontational. You can see that this is happening." And I don't think he took it seriously. And then Helen Steele, God bless her soul, I looked around and she was stood at the front of the protesters. She was just stood there by herself in the front of the counter protesters for ages, and she stopped them all from walking. Just herself, just stood there.
To create that space
between that space, and I was like, "That's brave. That's brave." Because I would not feel safe doing that.
She's got a really interesting radical history as well. You should Google Helen Steele if you've not heard of her, if you're listening.
So that was cool, and then it was Rad Femme Top Trumps. I saw loads of my heroes. Sheila Jeffries was there.
Oh yeah,
I had a chat with her.
Yeah,
tried not to embarrass myself. And just kept talking. I was like, "I'm moving to Korea," and she's like, "Oh, you'll have to change your look a little bit." And I'm like, "Oh, is it the makeup?" And she's like, "And the hair, because the Korean rad femmes have no makeup, no short hair. They've totally rejected feminine hair."
It's so interesting what's happening in the feminist movement over in Korea at the moment. I keep seeing it on Tumblr. It's absolutely fascinating. There's some great videos I would recommend. Oh, there's one, I can't remember the name of it, but there's this woman giving a speech, and there's two other women are next to her having their hair they're getting their heads shaved, and she's giving a speech while these women are getting their heads shaved. You don't own us, men don't own us. It's really, really powerful.
Cool. Yeah, but I'm not moving to South Korea, guys. I might move to South Korea because it's cool over there. But yeah, it was really good. What else? Yeah, I can't think of anything else about what happened there. But yeah, that's what I've been up to.
So you've been feministing pretty hard.
Yeah, I've been full-time feministing.
Yeah, cool.
But it's good because it's good to go to rallies and like actual real life events and meet people, because I think there's just so much infighting on the internet and it's really getting me down, and I can't be doing with it. So it's good to actually meet people in real life and realise that, you know, not everybody is a crazy narcissist. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's people that we politically disagree with anyway, that we know, and there's people within our movement that we still politically disagree with. But, you know, we have stuff in common. So, like you say, go out and meet people in real life. And though I might disagree with you on some aspects of the radical feminist movement, like, we have goals in common. Let's get together.
Yeah.
Let's meet people in real life and get stuff done.
Yeah. Well, it's good. You can have a proper conversation in real life in ways, nuances in ways that you can't do on the internet, you know. So it was good. Yeah.
Cool.
What have you been up to?
Oh God, I've been really busy. I've been one of those, I've been working all the time. But I got a promotion. Woo! Is that feminist just because it's a promotion?
That's like proper empowering, that, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's
Girl
good
boss.
for me personally. Liberal feminism, but I got a promotion.
Well, no, it's good to have more women in certain roles, you know.
Yeah,
like it is feminist.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
And I climbed Ben Nevis last weekend,
Woo!
which I don't know if it's specifically feminist or not, but me and my mate, who's a woman, we did it.
Is it a mountain or is it a hill?
I think
is it technically a mountain? It is a mountain, isn't it?
I think so. It's like 1,350 feet.
Is it hard? Was it hard to do?
It was hard, right? Because it was the 31st of August and there was sleet on the top, and I was thinking like, oh my God, it was really hard. It rained constantly, and but I was thinking, I can't turn back now. Like, I've come up to Fort William to do Ben Nevis. I'm gonna do it. And I was thinking about, right, because the last time I was in Fort William, I was there because I was working on a pregnancy documentary, and something that the midwives would say to me at the time was, when labour happens, they say, like, you can't turn this train around now, like, you just got to do it, like, to the mums who were giving birth. And I was thinking as I was walking up, I was like, I've got opportunities to turn around. And I was thinking, and I think because the last time I was in that area, it was working on the pregnancy doc, so that popped into my head. And I was thinking, but when women give birth, like, you can't stop that train. Like, you can't turn back. You have to do it, and it's hard. And I was thinking, well, if I turn back doing Ben Nevis, and I'm ambivalent about having kids at this point, but if I do in the future, like, I can't just turn back when labour gets hard. You just got to do it.
No, you just got to carry on.
So I wasn't being dramatic at all as I was walking up Ben Nevis.
It's exactly like having a baby.
Yep. But and I put a Make More Noise sticker at the top.
Yes, mate.
Yeah.
Yes,
put
mate.
Nice women don't make history. Fight back now. Make more noise.
Cool.
But I touched the top bit, but I couldn't feel my hand at that point, so I just kind of flopped my hand on the marker, the summit marker. Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Nice.
So we got a couple of topics to talk about this time. What are you talking about?
Well, this one, I've been pondering this for ages, and it's going to be a bit sprawling, but basically it's talking about abortion and relating it to, like, sex selective abortions in the third world.
Right.
And our we often talk about choice, like it's a woman's right to choose. But then when that comes into clashes with the amount of female fetuses that have been aborted via sex selective abortions.
Right.
So just talk a little bit about that, because I've been thinking about it for ages, and to be honest, I don't have any answers for this question. Yeah. So I'm just going to be throwing ideas out there.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit controversial, because we do see the woman's right to abortions as sort of central to the feminist mission, you know, the right to control your own body. But then it's difficult when they do that in the third world, and it results in all these more problems for women. So where's that line? When do we get to decide when choice ends and the greater good takes over?
Yeah, your choices are limited and shaped in a different way if you're in some developing countries, and even to an extent here as well, because sex selective abortion is a problem in the UK too.
Yeah.
In some communities, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it can be, you know, even if it's just, you know, one person and they've got a family of, they've got like 4 girls and they really want a boy, like, it might seem like not a big deal, but that one little decision that everybody makes can have like a pebble effect. Yeah, so to start off, I mean, I got thinking about this when I was when the abortion debate came up in America.
Oh yeah.
Because the Trump regime wants to basically ban abortions and reduce women's access to birth control. So I mean, and again, it's sort of seen as this almost like it's a culture war thing, isn't it? If you're on the left, then you're automatically in favour of sort of supporting Planned Parenthood and a woman's right to choose. If you're on the right, or if you're a Christian, then you believe that abortion is murder, basically. So it got me thinking. Somebody mentioned talking about the limits to this debate, and somebody mentioned something interesting about in Sri Lanka, the feminists over there initially opposed abortion.
Right.
Because they were concerned that it would lead to sex-selective abortions of girls, as it had done in other countries, and it was happening at the time. So initially, the feminists in Sri Lanka were not on board with abortion and access to abortion.
Right.
And it made me think more generally about the femicide of unborn fetuses in third world countries. It's particularly a problem in China and India. I think there are 23 million girl children who were not born because the parents decided to have a sex-selective abortion, and this has huge impacts on the country. I think in China it was the effect of the one-child policy. You know, they wanted to have one child, and if they have a boy, then they can be looked after in their old age, because a boy has more potential to earn money than a girl. She's maybe just going to get married. And in India, it's such a problem that Modi, the new prime minister, has set up a task force dedicated to try and tackle it. And Modi's from the BJP. They're like religious fundamentalists, so that's like a sign of how
bad it is.
You know?
Wasn't there a village in India somewhere where they didn't have any girls born for a period of time, which is just unheard of?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real problem, and obviously now there's a shortage of wives for these young men.
Well, yeah, and I've heard there's some places in China they're literally kidnapping women to be wives.
Well, not even kidnapping. There's a huge market in Vietnam and Laos for brides in China and India.
Right, so trafficking women,
right. Like marriage agencies.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, actually, in China, that if you want a high status wife, they'll get wives from the Ukraine and from Eastern Europe. So it's driving this market of women into these countries.
There's probably a racial element to that, isn't there?
Definitely. White women is a status symbol, isn't it?
Yeah.
But obviously, for the women who are being taken over there to be wives, they're very isolated. They often won't speak the language, totally isolated from their family networks. And for the women who do remain, I think one of India's problems with misogyny, girls getting harassed, is because there's not enough of them. Do you know what I mean? There's too many boys with no access to sex or to, you know, a future life, and so it's just feeding the misogyny even worse. You know. So obviously we consider as feminists, like, the impact.
Do you want to shut the window? Yeah. Our high-tech recording studio, everybody. It gets a bit warm, so we open the window.
So we consider the impact as feminists of the right of the impact of these decisions. And I think it brings us up to questions about agency and choice. Because we think that women in the West are able to make choices that are in their best interests, but we don't allow that women in the third world might be making those similar discussions. You know, if you're from a rural village and you're very poor, if you have a daughter, that will require a dowry. You know, she won't have the same earning income as sons. So maybe you've got other daughters, and you're thinking, I need to bring some money into this house because my children are starving. So I can't have another daughter. You know, who's to say what decisions are being made? You know, oftentimes we sort of assume that it's the man's decision, and obviously I don't think we can be blind to the power dynamics in those countries, and that often the women won't have the say in it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But who's to say the woman doesn't go along? If women are so devalued, it might often be the case that, you know, the woman doesn't want to bring a daughter into that world. Do you know what I mean? It's very easy that she'll make that decision.
It might be the woman's idea and the woman's decision, but again, it's shaped by the cultural misogyny that is keeping women down.
And I mean, like, you know, a lot of women don't get any status in these societies unless they birth sons. That's it at the end as well. So in their own self-interests, it is in her own self-interest to have this done. So, you know, is it a little bit racist, this questions that we have, like, we're allowed to make our decisions in this part of the world, but maybe over there they're not really making the best decisions. I think that we often ignore in the UK or in the West the impact that poverty can have on your decisions on whether or not to have a baby. If you look at this government, like the universal credit, it's had a huge impact on women. The changes in austerity, the cuts to like benefits and access to like childcare and things like that, you know, it's practically impossible to bring a child up if you're poor and alone in this country, and you're being persecuted by the state for it. There's now a policy, a two-child policy, where you don't get benefits for a third child unless you can prove that you were raped, which is another separate thing.
Absolutely obscene.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's something like, I think I was reading something like 1 in 4 kids grows up in poverty in the UK.
Yeah.
Like 1 in 4.
Yeah.
What, like, and I can't quite remember what the poverty line is off the top of my head, what the stats are, but it's like it's actually quite low, the poverty threshold, which makes it even more tragic that if you earn that amount plus £1, you're not considered in poverty, even though that amount is a tiny amount.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's often untalked about. And actually, it was really interesting because I was doing some research for the podcast and I found some really interesting piece, actually. There's a woman called Margaret Sagner. She was one of the founder of the US reproductive rights movement, and she championed Planned Parenthood. Oh, right. And initially her reasons for wanting women to have access to abortion, it was a feminist reason, you know. It was like women need to have autonomy and be able to plan their families. Yeah. But as time went on, it took on a eugenicist twist. Yeah. So eugenics wants to limit the who they consider like, I don't know, like genetically impure. Yeah. So like basically working class, disabled, and black people often, you know. Yeah. And she explicitly mentions this. I was reading a thing that she wrote, like the propaganda value of birth control. She explicitly mentions that it's about keeping up the white race and keeping down the black race, and it's brought out in statistics. Okay, black women are 5 times more likely to have an abortion than white women. Okay. And if you look at Georgia, for example, the black population makes up 32.2% of abortions. Sorry, the black population makes up 32%, but their abortions rate is 62.4%. Right. So it does this. So
it's like 1 in 3 women in Georgia are black, but 2 in 3 women who have abortions are black, right? Yeah. Okay.
And even if you adjust it for class, like I've lost the piece of paper because I'm always writing random things in books, but I believe it's the third. Even if you adjust it for class, if you're black, you're a third more likely to have an abortion than if you're white. Right. Which is interesting, and I don't know what can account for this, but maybe
it's access to birth control, because birth control is expensive and there's more black people are in poverty in Georgia, so they can't access birth control, so then it's abortion. But I don't know, but I
mean, it's interesting, and even if you taking away the racial element, the class element of it as well, you know, like and I think this is one thing that I think I've been thinking a lot about the abortion debate, and I do think that although abortion is very, very important as a last measure, that so much of the talk just gets het up in this culture war, and you're never going to get anywhere, because if somebody believes that abortion is murder, then you can't argue your way out of that. Yeah. I think we take it for granted in this country. Like, I can go to my doctor tomorrow and I can get a coil, I can go on the pill, I can get an injection, I can get an implant, I can get condoms, do you know what I mean? I can just say, can I have a load of condoms, please? And they'll just give them to me. And other countries don't have that, you know, and like that's more important than abortion. And if you're focusing on abortion and you're losing all of the support because you just this one little like spark of an issue, and again it just becomes about left and right infighting. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, do people just support abortion because they want to hammer the other side with something? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And again, looking at the reasons why people have abortions, like, you know, it's all right to talk about choice, but that choice is not made in a vacuum. It's made in a society which is like really unequal, and you might not have the resources to bring up a child but really want to, but you have to make that decision. So it's not really a free choice, is it? No. You know? And I do wonder I think a lot of radical feminists reject a lot of the choice rhetoric, and I think quite rightly so, because we realise that we're not all equal, so that we don't all make choices based up or off what we just want to do. We all have to be constrained by what we're able to do. And
it's Kimberly Crenshaw's theory of intersectionality as well, isn't it? Like that the choices that we make are affected by the different characteristics that we have that are oppressed. Yes. As well, like we don't all have the same free choices.
No, exactly. And it's it's like a taboo to talk about, to criticize abortion if you're on the left, or things like that. I don't know. Like I've tried to have this conversation, and I was really nervous about even talking about it today, because again, I can't. Obviously, I do believe in women having a right to abortions and to safe, legal abortions.
Yeah.
But I can't. I don't know. I can't square it with sex selective abortions. Like, where does the line come on when you can make that choice?
Yeah.
Where does the line come? I don't. Can you help me?
Oh God, you're asking. I'm thinking. I'm reminded of there's something, an Andrew Dworkin thing I read, and she talked about abortions and how a lot of men on the left loved it, because rather than them liking that women have bodily autonomy for like political reasons and for feminist reasons, it just meant that they had greater sexual access to women and didn't have to deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
They didn't have to drag around like a whining harpy and a kid in tow or whatever if they had sexual dalliances. And I'm just reminded of that yeah. But I'm with you. Having an abortion is something that I think is sacred in the feminist movement. The right for a woman to have bodily autonomy, to make choices about her fertility and her family planning. Yeah. But it's not as simple that the choice to have an abortion doesn't happen in a vacuum. Yeah.
And so and again, it's a bit sprawling because I haven't really got an answer to any of these things. I think it might be interesting to do as a topic, abortion or femicide. Go into it in more detail. But I find that those two things will up against each other awkwardly. And even it reveals some hypocrisy on the feminist part. Do you know why? I was thinking about this last night.
Go on.
We often talk about the deaths of those girls as deaths of girls. But when Christians talk about the deaths of babies, we say no, because they're not born yet. Like it's not the same. But then we go around and like get really upset about it on the other hand. So you need to make up your mind.
I have noticed that, actually.
Like, it's like I just thought about it last night. I mentioned that in the podcast.
I had noticed that, but I'd never really thought about it much more than a passing thing or talked about it. So that's an uncomfortable truth in the feminist movement.
You can't have it both ways, can you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't have the answers, but I think hopefully we've given some people food for thought. It's we do choose some hard hitting topics sometimes, but what we're about is trying to prod and question and agitate a little bit and see if we can get to the bottom of something and see if we can move forward together.
Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt to talk, does it? It's all about finding the elephants in the room and then prodding them.
That should be our other, like, on our other the point 11 on our manifesto. It doesn't hurt to talk, does it? It doesn't hurt to talk, but it doesn't. We should. It's
good to talk.
And when you said you were going to do this topic, it's something I'd never thought about, but you gave me a lot of food for thought when you told me that you were doing it.
Well, I've not found anybody talking about this. Which I understand why. I mean, there's lots of things you can talk about. But I've not seen anybody talking about this, and I think it tests your beliefs quite strongly, really, doesn't it? What I mean, obviously, like, abortion is really, really, really important that women have access to it. I do believe that, but then I also believe that
we've got to address some uncomfortable truths around it as well.
Yes. Yeah. So that was my topic of the week.
Well, that's great. Like, if you have any questions or comments or can direct us to further reading, do leave us a comment, send us an email. We'd love to read more about it. Definitely, I certainly would. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. To lighten things up, I'm talking about climate change and how the planet is burning.
Oh, yay, the end of the world!
We are going to hell in a handcart.
Oh, okay.
But
give me some statistics about the end of the world. This will be fun.
No, I didn't. I couldn't read them because I was like, this is just going to upset me. But, like, it is bad. But there are some schools of thought, not the climate change deniers, but there are some schools of thought that it's not as bad as we think it might be. We just need to sort our shit out. But we're not sorting our shit out.
Well, Britain is just mental. We're having a massive nervous breakdown in front of
in front of the world.
Sorry, guys. Honestly, like, it's just the politicians that they've ruined the country. Sorry,
we're an absolute laughing stock, aren't we?
I know.
Bloody hell. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Bear with us, please. Bear with us.
But I was thinking like for radical feminist analysis and perspective and how climate change will affect women, and I've got a couple of other bits I want to talk about as well. But I was looking up ecofeminism. So way back, like when we in the early days of the blog, which was only a few months ago, but I think I did a piece that was a sort of breakdown about the different schools of feminist thought. It's very much a primer. It's not detailed analysis at all. But I came across ecofeminism then. And so I was thinking about that, and here's the definition, or our definition. So ecofeminism is a philosophical and political theory and movement which combines ecological concerns with feminist ones, regarding both as male domination of society. I thought that was interesting, and I can definitely see it and the statistics do bear out the fact that the climate change is largely a result of men and male domination. So the climate change, and we know this, climate change is going to affect the world's poorest, because it's going to affect them the most.
And it's the third world that's bearing the brunt of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and 70% of the world's poor are women.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely going to disproportionately affect women. And women are often responsible for gathering and producing food and collecting water and things like that. And globally, it is 7 out of 10 farmers that are women. And I was surprised by that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
but it is, yes, globally, 7 out of 10. It's women that do that. Well, women make the world go round, but we all knew that anyway, didn't we? And more than 10,000 women each year die from weather-related disasters, and it's 4,500 men, so less than half of men compared to the amount of women die. And I mean, not all weather-related disasters can be directly tied to climate change, but we are seeing more extreme weather as a result of climate change. And out of the 26 million people that have been displaced by climate change, 20 million of them are women.
Okay.
So all this climate change stuff is always disproportionately affecting women.
I was not aware of this. It's really interesting because it's not really discussed about the gendered element, the sexed element of the impacts. You know?
Yeah, it's not. It's all about, being flashy and tying yourself to I'll talk about that in a minute. But and when women and girls are empowered in societies and in governments, and given political representation, they do make more environmentally conscious decisions. And we've seen this in different councils and governments throughout the world as well, that if you have more women or have more of a mixed parliament, they're actually more environmentally friendly.
Interesting.
Yeah, and women just day to day as well. Women spend less on consumer goods. That might be tied to the fact that we earn less, or another number of reasons.
I don't think we're into gadgets and bits like boys are.
Yeah.
Well, but then we do like clothes,
and
which
fast
is the
fashion,
main driver of climate breakdown is the clothing industry, isn't it?
But who heads up all the clothing industries?
Well, that would be the men, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. But yeah, so women do, and on an individual level, we contribute less to climate change. And on a global level, when we have political representation, we are much better at making, the cabinet or the government are much better at making environmentally conscious decisions, which is interesting. But yeah, so we're going to hell in a handcart because people, we were told 30, 40 years ago, well, back in the 70s, when people were like, we're killing the planet, we need to look after the planet. We've just done nothing. Done nothing.
I think a part of it is because it's a tribal thing, isn't it? It's like you're seen as a hippie and a proper lefty, if you like, that. Whereas actually having a living planet, it should be a human being thing.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Really interesting. I was reading a piece that when we talk about the planet using language like that, it turns off the right and it appeals to the left. But when we talk about climate change in terms of small c conservative values, like preserving, defending, having somewhere for your family to grow,
that's what
they hook into it a lot more, which I thought was very interesting. And women globally have less of a say in all the environmental policies as well, because we don't have
political representation.
No, we don't. So we've had less of a say in all this stuff. Like, we were told the planet was burning, and we're like, okay, let's still, dig up fossil fuels. Yeah, 1 million old dinosaurs are going to help us.
Fracking? What the hell are you doing?
Well,
this is insane. Oh, there keeps being mini earthquakes in Blackpool. Do you think it's safe? Yes, it's fine.
Yeah.
Honestly.
This is something I was going to talk about as well. Like, it is, I can't believe that we were told, and renewable energy is like improving all the time, and we're like, yeah, let's get this really unstable gas out of shale rock that we don't even like, that so much of it is exploratory drilling as well, because we're not very good at getting it out efficiently. And let's do that. Do you know what fracking is?
Well, like, they drill a hole down into the earth, and then they shove loads of water in it, and it brings up the gas.
Yeah, so
basically
it's gas that's trapped in rocks.
Yeah.
And they kind of shatter the rocks to release the gas.
Yeah.
But you can't tell that far down how deep the different rock levels are. So there's different types of rock that have different densities, etc., etc. And you can't really tell, and it differs as well. And you can't tell how the rock is going to split as well. And so when you shatter it with the pressure of the water, which has other chemicals in it as well, they leave the water with the other chemicals down there, and they're supposed to put it in like underground lined places so that it doesn't seep into the groundwater supply. But can you guess what's happened to it?
They're not doing that.
No, it seeps into the groundwater supply. And it's just, there've been earthquakes in Blackpool. Now, you know, the UK is quite small. We don't really have extreme weather. We don't get tornadoes, really.
We're middling, aren't we? In everything. Just a little bit rainy, a little bit sunny, a little bit snowy.
Yeah. We don't get like big earthquakes like you do. We don't have volcanoes. It still like blows my mind that like Italy has like volcanoes when Italy feels like really close. And I'd like think of volcanoes as being somewhere like far away.
Well, Iceland.
Yeah. But we don't have any of that.
No.
But we're having earthquakes in Blackpool.
Yeah, it's insane to me, and they just this is something that I find quite interesting, is the amount of pushback locally. Like, nobody wants fracking done in their area, and who wants fracking? It's just oil. It's just the companies who want to make loads of money out of it, and that's what the only thing it's about is rich people making more money.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this is to do with the oligarchy. You know, like, we've seen all of the power drain out of the people up into the upper echelons. Neoliberalism is the ideology that if you give all your money to the rich, then it'll trickle down to the poor. It makes no actual sense. It's ridiculous as an ideology. But that's what runs the world now, isn't it? And we've lost all even parliaments and governments. They've lost all power to the corporations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
To oil and media, and and that's it.
And we often focus on like, we need better representation of women in Parliament. It's like, what's the point? What power does Parliament have? Well, I'm not going to talk about Boris Johnson. But literally, like, Parliament doesn't do anything. Governments have no power now. It's all about corporations, and they're not behaving responsibly. And obviously we know what the makeup of corporation boards tend to look like, don't we? Yeah.
Well, George Osborne, who isn't in the government anymore, he's now editor of The Economist or something, or is it The Economist? The Evening Standard.
Evening Standard. It's like the London Metro, but not Metro.
But when he was in Parliament, his father-in-law, I believe, has vested interests in fracking companies, and George Osborne pushed through all this legislation that means it's okay. A couple of years ago, that meant it was okay to frack. You know, someone could frack under your house, as we sit here in our recording studio on your bed. Someone could frack under your house, and you could not do a thing about it. Yeah.
I don't like that.
Like, Quadrilla could come and be like, we're just doing exploratory drilling, and you couldn't do a thing about it because they have that right now.
Oh, well, right. So we're all gonna die, and now they're fracking. Can we do anything about it? Like,
well, I went down to the press. So there's a protest, a rolling roadside protest on Preston New Road, which is close to one of the sites in Blackpool, the Quadrilla fracking sites. And I went down last year just because I wanted to see what it was about. I've been meaning to go down for ages and I hadn't, and it was really interesting actually. There, just so many people, and like what you said about how people in Blackpool don't want fracking. So there's some members of the community that really don't want it. A lot of them don't care, and a lot of them are actively hostile to the protesters because they do disrupt the traffic on that. But they let traffic through. It's like a filter system of like, so the protesters can go along the road, and with a police presence, go along the road outside the Quadrilla fracking site, and then the traffic is filtered through single lane. And then you get lots of people beeping with the thumbs up as you're holding up like the signs like no fracking here, and then you get lots of people like thumbs down, scowling like they don't like it because they can't get to the garden centre in time or something, I don't know. But I thought that was interesting. But now that there's been even more earthquakes, because it was suspended for a bit, and now there's been even more earthquakes loads more of the community have come out because they're actually feeling the physical effects.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it becomes like a tribal issue, isn't it? If you see crusty lefties on the road, you're like, oh, it depends on where your political ideology lies. Yeah. The environmentalist movement does have a problem that it's too politicized in this way, so it doesn't really welcome Tories, does it?
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I think, because it is a lefty issue, but I hadn't thought of that as like a massive failing, that it is too politicised. But yeah, maybe it is.
I was at the the Extinction Rebellion.
Oh yeah,
I've been to a couple of meetings because I am inspired by it. I do think as important as feminism is, the planet's more important, and I do think it's a huge problem. And I did find it was very white, and a lot of talk was about. Everybody there was either left or green, and rather than addressing climate change, they were talking about we need to tackle the systems and oppressions and capitalism more generally, and then they would start talking about we need to stop Brexit, and it's like, this is not good for, if you really want to build like a mass movement of people, then you need to be focused on this issue, and maybe you can't separate it from the capitalist system, I understand that, but like, I don't know, like Brexit's...
Saying stop Brexit, but isn't the EU a capitalist endeavour?
This is the thing, like,
let's not get into that too much.
Don't mention the Brexit, because we should do Brexit one time.
Actually, we should. Yeah.
Well, next, is it going to be? Is the end of the world going to happen next week? When we go out without a deal.
Next one will be October, which is when we're supposed to leave. So yeah, let's do one. Yeah,
let's do Brexit.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
decided. But yeah, Preston New Road was interesting as well, because there was on every Wednesday, or at that time, I don't know if they still do it. There's these women in white that protest, and it's just a woman's protest, and they all wear white like suffragettes, and it was mainly older women when I went, and I was just so inspired by it, and they sing and they do dancing, and it's all like to protest it. It's the woman's call for calm. And when the judge banned protesting for a while, or granted like an injunction against protesting, but he didn't ban the women's protest on every Wednesday. And I thought that was really interesting, and I wondered why. And somebody said to me, it's to try and split the left. It's to try and split the movement, that there might be some resentment building up if these women are allowed to protest, but everybody else isn't. And I just thought it was very interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting how, feminist issues are splitting the left, and especially the environmental movement,
Yeah.
The Green Party refers to women as non-men, and uses this inclusive language that just sounds like it hates women. And a lot of environmentalists rightly think, hang on a minute, wait, what? I think it's really interesting that often the way we talk about Mother Nature, it's very much, we have gendered nature to be female.
Well, because nature gives life and women give life.
And yet, we have like no respect for actual women in these green movements, and it makes me wonder what they're doing there. They just want to control nature, like be the custodian of nature, like they want to control women, like
just a different control as opposed to the capitalist. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, I also wanted to talk very briefly about Greta Thunberg.
I have opinions about her.
So do I. Oh, they might align. This is interesting. I just think, so this isn't necessarily about Greta personally. This is about the brand.
Yeah.
So I think, she's very articulate and intelligent young woman, and I think what she's done to kind of galvanise people has been really great. And she's only 16.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to say this without patronising her, but I really worry about her. She's a teenager. Yeah. Not to patronise her too much, because she's clearly mature beyond her years, but she's a teenager, and she's been thrust into the spotlight like this very quickly, and I worry for her.
I think that it's not due care has been given to her, because I do think she gets a lot of abuse, and I'm not defending that in any way. It's despicable.
Yeah.
But is it right? And left-wing movements do this quite a lot, and I've not started to notice it. And to be honest, I think it's a bit creepy. I have massive problems with this. You shouldn't, if you make children a spokesperson for
that's exactly what I've written down as well.
And then you can't criticise that child in the way that you would a normal, like an adult, you can say mean things to, and it's expected that adult is able to handle that. But if you use a child to put forward your message, it's incredibly emotionally manipulative, because to go against her is to go against a small child, like no, she's not a small child, but you know what I mean, like
going against a kid,
teenager, do you know what I mean? And secondly, although I'm sure she is very mature for a 16-year-old, I just don't buy this. I think it's all spin. She's got people behind her who are trying to push an agenda, because she just went took a day off school and then went and sat outside the Parliament, and then like 7 days later she created this entire movement. No, bullshit. That doesn't happen.
There's machinations in the background, isn't there? Exactly what you said about not being able to criticise a kid, and not even just like to say mean things, but even to criticise ideas.
Yeah.
If you're criticising the ideas that she says, it's like, oh, but she's a kid though, she's doing so well.
Yeah.
And it's like, as you say, impossible to criticise her. There was a good quote, that the youth are sacrificial lambs for the elite.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, who is the elite in this case? But there's a climate change lobby as well. There's all the capitalists and oil companies that are killing the planet, but also all the advocates for environmentalism. They are lobbies too. A lot of them are lobbies. They have money that, they have a business shareholders to satisfy.
Did you read that? Did you read that article I sent you ages ago, or the podcast I sent you about this very issue, actually, about the money that's behind Thurberg?
Oh, I think I probably did come across it then again. I probably, yeah.
Basically, there's a woman who's done a lot of research in the environmentalist movement and the lobbying, and she basically calls it green capitalism.
Yeah.
And what this will do is, I would have like listened to it again so I can properly remember, but I can't. So I'll just briefly like bullshit for a little bit. It's not bullshit. Like basically, she's concerned is that what this will do is they want to talk about being custodians of nature. So they will basically privatise the entire natural world and then sell it, and then like you can buy like,
because you can't trust the government, you can't trust it to be public,
so we'll buy it and look all over it, but that's just going to disenfranchise the third world, because they're going to be like kicked off their land and not lose all rights to the land, because now it's owned by this green corporation.
That's already happened in Scotland. The guy who runs ASOS owns a lot of the Highlands, and he actually seems like a decent individual, and he's Danish, and they have a different attitude towards their environment there. I think a lot of their environment is actually privately owned, but they have this kind of, it's always like for public good, that they do grant public access. So he's done that with the Highlands. But is that a slippery slope? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. This was interesting, this to listen to. And again, I don't know. I just feel like I'm super paranoid about everything. I'm even paranoid about Extinction Rebellion, Do you know what I think?
Well, there's no transparent structure, is there?
No.
Which is part of their appeal, and part because they want to be collective. But ultimately, when you're that big, you need people to make decisions.
I mean, I do think it's good that they have this idea that anyone can speak at the meetings, and it is very involved grassroots, but there's people behind it, got to be running it. Do you know what I mean? And who are they? Like, tell the truth, Extinction Rebellion. I don't know. It could be a natural organic thing, but do you know what my concern is? Like, this is when I go proper like power. But like,
go on.
Right, what do Extinction Rebellion do? How do they make a mark? What's the main tactic of Extinction Rebellion?
It's disruption
of transportation services. Now, what do you do if you want to arrange a coup in a country? What's one of the most important things that you do?
Are you about to tell me it's disrupt transportation?
It is though, isn't it? You shut down the airports, you shut down the main roads.
God, yeah.
Is this the left's way that if they ever should want to do a coup or need to do a coup, maybe Brexit's going to get too much, or they just decide no, it's too extreme, this is an emergency. Is this what the left will use to install a leftist dictatorship?
Well, we've already suspended Parliament. We're suspending Parliament. Or proroguing even. Everybody furiously Googled what that word was the second we heard it on the news. We've prorogued Parliament.
Yeah.
And we're disrupting public transport.
We're so split as a country.
Interesting.
The right are becoming fascist, so the left might retaliate. Do you think Momentum are behaving like good Democrats? Do you think the left is behaving like good? Are they behaving well? No, they are not behaving well.
Is it a circle? I don't think it's a full closed circle, but I definitely think it's a horseshoe with extreme leftists and extreme right. Yeah. That's
just my. I don't want to denigrate anybody's hard work in the movement, because I do love what they're doing. But sometimes when I'm like on a paranoid bent and I'm like on a Philip K. Dick mode, I'm like,
I think we do need to always retain critical analysis with these things. Don't never be so open-minded that your brains fall out.
Well, yeah, and I think also from my own sense, a lot of the Green Party and a lot of the environmentalists and anti-fascists, the anti-womanness of them that's become apparent, it makes me totally distrust them, and it's really bad, because I do want to save the world, but I don't think they're the men to do it.
I think there's going to be... I can guarantee, I will put money on this now, and, in a few weeks or a few years or whenever this comes out, there will have been or will be like big sexual assault scandals in Extinction Rebellion.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
And we know this, like, and I'm not saying this because I have insider information, nobody's told me this, but I can just guarantee it will happen, because with any big movement like that, it happens. And then when women try and speak up about it, like, nobody cares. It happened with the Occupy movement. Do you remember, like, 8 years ago?
The 10 cities.
Yeah, it happens. And there was like a couple of key people that were high up in Occupy, and these women accused one man in particular, I think it was in the big New York tent city thing, of sexual assault, and a bunch of women accused him, and it was like all covered up and stuff, and like, oh, you're ruining the movement. And we've talked about this before with men on the left, ruining the movement, don't speak up.
They've got links with the Socialist Workers Party. The Socialist Workers Party, they do all the that Stop Hate, the anti-hate protest. That's what this SWP has got into doing, that to clean itself up.
Right.
But they've got links with XR. Of course they do.
Do they? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And SWP are the ones with those bloody kangaroo courts for that poor woman who was assaulted. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like thing, you've got a movement based on trust. If you're an activist, then you're supposed to trust your comrades. And it happens in this movement where people will abuse it, like it does, people will abuse it. So if there's no clear structure and process, and also did you hear that they got free legal advice and it was removed? The law agency took an unprecedented step to make a public statement saying, we won't be supporting Extinction Rebellion because you're not listening to our advice and you're putting the people in the front line in danger.
Oh yeah, about arrests and stuff.
So they were handing out information about what the police were doing in such a way that means that when those protesters would go to court, that they would be like, it's like they'd be pre-warned, so they'd like committed a crime. So they're basically putting all of the people who are protesting for them in danger and lying to them, and not treating them well. So do you know what I mean? I'm like, spidey sense.
So what do you mean, like that?
So like they're being basically the legal observations. They're not doing it properly.
Right. Yeah.
They're not advising them. They're not giving they're not telling the truth to the protesters about the possible risks of the actions that they're doing.
Right.
And they're releasing information in such a way that it's almost like the courts will be able to show premeditation of the people because they've been told something, and then like that becomes like
it's a higher crime, with a heavier sentence, isn't it? Right.
So they
interesting.
I can't remember again. I should have read up a bit on this, but I was last minute doing my homework. So, so yeah, like it's just dodgy, dodgy, and I don't know whether or not it's like the internal mechanisms of just creating this movement so quickly without any
any good foundations.
And just being a bit overwhelmed by it all, to be perfectly honest. I don't think even they thought they'd be this successful. So I think it could be like all natural, just like birthing pains or whatever. But do you know, I'm honest as well, when I'm there, it just feels so middle class, so like upper middle class.
Does it?
Do you know what I mean?
I've not been to a meeting yet.
Like singing folk songs and stuff. Like I don't know if it's a class thing or just in a northerner, but I'm just like, no, put the guitar down, mate. We're not doing this. Do you know what I mean? And they do want to engage more with like, black people and working class people and all these other groups. But it's like, well, I don't know. Like I don't think. Some middle class people understand how like the cultural differences and how like a bit alienating it can be.
Also, it's really hard to be environmentally conscious when you're poor as well. If it's fast fashion clothes are cheap, and if you need something for an interview so you can get a job, so you can come off universal credit. Look,
I'm doing my bit for the environment.
Yeah, you ripped jeans. I've not bought new clothes in ages. No. Like you can see my tights are holy and my jeans are literally falling off. True punk, as opposed to buying pre-ripped jeans because they're fashionable. Like my jeans are ripping because I'm not going to buy a new pair until they literally fall off my legs.
Well, I just haven't got any money, so it's not really that I'm environmentally conscious. I cycle, that's quite good. But yeah, and I do think a lot of these debates about personal autonomy when it comes to the environmental breakdown don't realise the impact of poverty.
Yeah.
On people's abilities to do things, and also ill education. A lot of it's like, oh, let's educate people about how to recycle, and it's like, do you understand that the average reading age in the UK is like 11 years old?
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be like a gap between what the middle classes consider acceptable and what working people and like like the underprivileged people.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's who's creating the biggest carbon footprint. Is it Prince Harry's like, oh, I'm only going to have 2 children for the environment, and it's like, yeah, you could have no children because you live in a palace, like, and travel around the world in private jets, like, you're not doing fuck all, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, just don't have any kids.
I got a bamboo toothbrush.
Yep.
That's quite middle class though, isn't it?
So yeah, we're not even talking about feminism now. We're just slagging off. Like,
it is all linked though, and I think that's something we come back to a lot, that this stuff is all linked, like class, feminism, the oppression of women, the destruction of the environment. It is all linked.
It is all interlinked, and it's all just a shit show, isn't it? It's easy for us to sit on the sidelines and criticise everything.
Yeah, it's easy for us to give our opinions, so that's what we do because we're good at it. If you've got any further reading on that, do let us know, send it over, leave a comment. I'd be really curious to read.
If you have an Extinction Rebellion and think that we're totally wrong in our analysis, then please tell us.
Let us know.
To talk to you.
Right, we come to we've got to do what's coming up as well.
Okay, what's coming up on Thursday?
Yeah, you go first.
I'm this is a personal plug because there's Selena Todd is a historian of at Oxford University, and she's released a book about Sheena Delaney. She's the woman who wrote A Taste of Honey, a working class playwright in the 1960s. So she's going to be launching the book, having some readings, and then there's going to be a panel discussion about class and feminism in the creative industries. And funnily enough, guess who's going to be on the panel?
Go on.
I'm going to be on the panel.
Ooh.
Selena Todd heard the podcast and she really liked it. So
that's good.
She's a fan. Hi, Selena.
Hi, Selena.
So that's this Thursday at the Salford Working Class History Museum.
Oh no, it's at Salford Museum. It's opposite the Working Class Movement Library.
Yeah. And then next Saturday, there is the Manchester Feminist Network are hosting a women's disco.
Woo!
So if you want a ticket, we'll put a link in the description to the Eventbrite so you can buy a ticket if you so wish. I'm going to be DJing as well. So again, I'm not just plugging myself here.
No, it's going to be good. I'm going to be there.
Yeah. Come down and say hi.
So I've got it up now. Michael Herbert said there are a couple of places left on the course. He'll be teaching in autumn on Radical Women, 1914 to 1979. The venue will be the Working Class Movement Library in Salford, and you can find more details on the course if you Google. It's Red Flag Walks. It's a WordPress site. You could get more information. As I said, I went to one and I thought it was really, really great. I can't come to this one because I'm working, but I would definitely recommend. Fascinating stuff, and I would recommend just heading around the Working Class Movement Library as well. It's cool.
Yeah.
So we've come to the end. We have our little Women Who Dare card game thingy, and today we have plucked out of the pack somebody called Ida Tarbell. So, do you know anything about Ida Tarbell?
Never heard of her.
No, I haven't either. So she's American, 1857 to 1944. Ida Tarbell is best remembered for the series of articles she wrote on the Standard Oil Trusts for McClure's magazine, published in book form in 1904, in which she exposed blackmail, price rigging and other illegal practices by the company that then controlled 90% of the nation's petroleum supply. The articles not only led to dissolution of Standard Oil of New Jersey under the Sherman Antitrust Act, but also helped shape the emerging trend of investigative journalism. Women are good at getting our noses into stuff, aren't we, and finding out what's going on.
Gossiping.
But we're good at it though. Tarbell, a biographer and historian by training, continued to pursue historical work as an associate editor for McClure's. After the Standard Oil expose, she joined Lincoln Steffens and others in purchasing and running American Magazine. Despite her popular image as a crusader, Tarbell strove for even-handedness and considered herself fundamentally a friend of business. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's a good one, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, cool. If you have any questions, comments or suggestions, I think we've decided we're doing Brexit next month, so but if you have anything else you want us to talk about, do send us an email, mmpublications@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you. If you want to write for us as well, or any suggestions for topics to cover on the blog, do let us know.
If you like the podcast, please give us a rating on wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, this helps.
This is all helping to drive traffic up here. Tell everyone about it if you like it as well, because we can't go on Twitter and we've lost our communication method.
Yeah. So more people can hear about just us talking about depressing subjects every month from about because the world's going to hell.
I think we've done it in quite a cheerful manner, to be perfectly honest. Like, you wouldn't know it, would you? It's just gallows. Are we doing gallows humour?
I think so. Yeah. If nothing matters, then all that matters is just trying to meet with people in real life and try and make a little bit of change in your circle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right. We'll speak to you in about a month.
Yeah.